Material is a big killer on jobs, and there's lots of variables, so really it's just the best trade-offs. Now, I've paid hundreds of contractors and been on hundreds of jobs, and this is the best way that I've found to deal with it. But a few things you got to understand first. I'm reading from my notes. So there's basically three ways that you can pay for materials. You could have an enclosed bid. All right, that would mean that the contractor brings you a bid that has their labor and the materials all included. All right, so it's $10,000 to do this job. Everything should be done and paid for after you pay that $10,000. Next would be cost plus. So the contractor probably gives you an estimate. It's going to be around $10,000. And then they bill you as you go with both material and with labor. And finally, there is the option of they give you a labor bid, or I guess it could be labor cost plus, but you have to provide the material. Okay, now the you providing material part is always going to eat up a bunch of your bandwidth, and that ends up being really bad for you because you really need to be spending your bandwidth doing other things like finding better deals or finding better contractors, writing better scopes of work, et cetera, et cetera. But there's a lot of gray area here. So let's get into it. There's the biggest thing to understand is that there's different types of contractors, different jobs across the project, and you'll hire different types of contractors. So there's specific job contractors, as I would call them, which would be like a roofing company, right? You'd have a roofer come in and they do nothing but roofing. Siding, they do, another company does nothing but siding. An electrician, a plumber, mechanical. Those are specific job contractors. Then there's handymen. Okay, these are guys where, something busted in your house and they're gonna come in and do it. They're gonna be like in there for less than a day. Problem solvers, troubleshooters. And then there's the all-arounders, okay? These are like the meat and potatoes of the renovation world. These are the guys that, they'll do the demo, they'll do the floors, they'll do the paint, they put in the, cabinets, the vanities, they'll do the trim, they'll take out the trash if that's what you want to put on the scope for them. Okay, these are the guys that you spend most of your time doing. So the specific job contractors are pretty easy. You would really want them to have like an enclosed bid. You would expect that from them because if they do nothing but roofing, they go look at your roof and they're like, that's 40 squares. This is exactly what that's going to cost. It's unlikely that they're going to need you to pay for the materials. And we're going to get to that. There's really a reason why these contractors need you to pay for material, and it's really kind of the silent killer on all of these jobs. It's why people get put in the contractor's black hole. Okay, so with the roofing contractor, they would give you an enclosed bid, or maybe, okay, because a big rule of ours is that we never pay contractors in advance. Okay, so take roofing for an example. They may be uncomfortable getting started with the job because they have to, pay $4,000 or $5,000 for material up front. They don't know you. They don't want to do that. Okay, that makes sense. So I might actually pay for the material, but they're going to prep the order for me. And it's going to be part of when they give me a price, they're going to say, hey, that roof's $10,000. It's $5,000 labor, $5,000 material. I need you to pay for the material. Okay, that's a variable way of an enclosed bid. Okay, the point is I'm not doing the work to make that list. Like they would actually at the supply house, they would make the order for me. I would just call in and pay, or I would have like a VA call in and pay or whatnot. Okay, so specific job contractors, that's what you can expect from them. A mechanical, HVAC, same kind of thing. Electrical, plumbing, they are going to provide their own material, okay, in one way or another. You might be actually putting in the credit card number to pay for it, but they're making the list, and that should be expected of them. They're used to doing it. Okay, the handyman, you're really going to do like a cost plus scenario with these kind of guys because you're needing something quick. This is like, think maintenance. There's a problem on a rental. They're going to go out there, they're going to fix it. It's going to be under a day. You're just going to get a bill and you're going to have to eat it. It sucks because when you plan things out, you usually end up paying less for it. But sometimes you just have to get things done. That's the times you use handymen, by the way. If you can plan things out, you don't. Now we have the all-arounder, and the rest of this video is going to be about the all-arounder because that is most of where your work is going to come from. So here is the three main considerations, and this is really what kills projects. Okay, momentum, fear, and then a built-in manager. Let's say momentum. It's on how this works, but basically these contractors, they don't just have your job going on, your project. They have multiple projects going on, and they are going to go to where they can keep surgeons at the table working and making the money, because when people are working, they're making money in one way or another. So they're always looking at how they can keep production going. If you run into bottlenecks because of material, so let's say you're the one purchasing the material, but you need answers from them, like what sizes do I need? What styles are we going to go with? Are there problems? And there are always problems. And so now I'm waiting to get the material to the job site, but they can't wait. So then they go move their momentum to another project. And that's how delays happen. Okay, so you want to, as a project manager, you want to keep things flowing, all right? And you being in the way of materials is not going to keep it flowing. That's one consideration on the momentum part. The other thing is you give them a scapegoat, okay? When problems happen, they can always come back and say, oh, well, it's because you didn't have material on the site, and that's why I had to move my guys off, and then, it took me a while to get back. Never give them an excuse to put it back on you. You always want to make sure that they have the responsibility and they can't send it back to you. This happens all the time. It's happened to me on so many projects, which is how I've learned this. Okay, next is the fear tax. If you see my other videos, you've seen me talk about the fear tax. And, a lot of times I'm talking about it in the way of like it's a sewer line, let's say. And basically every project price comes down to material plus labor equals the price that they give you or the price that you end up paying. But then there's a little tax on top of it, the fear tax, where it's like a sewer line. You don't really know what's going on with the sewer line, so they put a little multiplier on the material plus labor plus reasonable markup times fear tax. Okay, but fear tax works the other way as well. Contractor comes in, they see the project, and they are fearful because they can't make the scope out in their mind. The vision isn't clear to them. They're thinking, oh gosh, what if this is a can of worms for me? What if this ends up taking more days than it's supposed to? And so the only way I can deal with those things is I expand the price to cover me in the scenario that I miss something. Okay, and now the same thing with materials, okay, because we all know that contractors, their main thing is not administrative work. So what does it take to plan out the material for a project? You have to sit down and you have to think through everything that's going to happen on the project. And you have to, write it all down, calculate. You got to look up online what it's going to cost and stuff. And we're specifically talking about the all-arounders because it's variable. Different for the roofer. They should know exactly what that costs. All right, so you can think about how much work that would be. And they're just not going to do it, okay? Unless they really need a job. They are not going to do it. And most of them don't really need jobs. There's lots of jobs out there. Okay, so now you've created friction for them to give you a bid. You've created fear. You've created administrative work that they don't want to do. So what do instead? They're like, oh gosh, I think this will probably cost $5,000 in material. I'm going to say 8,000 just to make sure I'm on the safe side, right? So you end up paying more. And so you don't want that situation. You don't want to cause the friction for getting the bid. That's why people, call contractors to come in and they never actually get a bid from them because it's too much work. They're going to take the easier road. All right, so that's a consideration. And finally, the actual management. All right, so what I've found is that during the project, I'll see materials come in and I'm like, what the hell are you doing? Like, that's not what we're doing here. And I don't know how you got that idea from what I normally do, but that's not what I do. Okay, so how do you deal with all this stuff? Here's how I do it. All right, first you need to know your material. All right, so there's building material. This is like wood that goes in the wall, drywall, mud, paint, wires, etc., etc. All right, that's pretty easy. Everybody is going to know, like, you want this type of wood in the walls, right? There's no choice to make there. So that's easy. Next part is the finished material. And this is where, okay, there's lots of different options on finished material. And a lot of people, not a lot of people, but the HGTV guys like to pick the styles and such. That's not me. That's not what I teach. That's not what I do. It's what I used to do. And then finally, I started actually making money doing this because I stopped trying to be a designer and a stylist. It stopped being a hobby for me and it started to be a business. Okay, and in a business, what you're always trying to do is make things as least variable as possible. All right, so here's the deal. If they don't sell it at Home Depot, I don't want it. All right, because Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever, one of the big box stores, it's consistent. All right, and that means, though, that I'm not doing high-end flip because high-end flips, you can't go buy cabinets off the shelf at Home Depot for a high-end flip and get away with it. All right, so I don't do a lot of A-class stuff because A-class, it takes more bandwidth from me because I actually do have to figure out materials that aren't on my normal production line. All right, so basically, think about finished material here. We have cabinets, countertops, floors, tiles. We have like the actual vanities, and then hardware. Hardware is like door hinges, door handles, light fixtures, plumbing fixtures. And here's the thing. With hardware, I always get the same stuff. If the house is a black matte type of house, all of it matches. If it's a satin nickel type of house, that it all matches. And usually that stuff can be bought off of Amazon, right? And then cabinets, white shaker, right off the shelf at Home Depot. Countertops are butcher block or a granite or quartz, same one every single time, depending on the class of the house, right? And let's talk about the class. A-class, I don't do a lot of. I do either B-class houses or C-class houses. C-classes, they're usually my rentals. B-class, those are usually my flips. And B-class gets a little bit nicer stuff than the C-class. Okay, and then you have tiles, just same ones every time. Same ones for B-class, same ones for C-class. Different ones for each, but it's the same every time. And truly, C-class is usually not tile. It's things like shower enclosures instead, and LVP. And LVP, there you go. It's gray. Guys, all the stuff that they talk about, looks like a flipper did it, that's good, okay? That means that you're consistent and you're running a business. All right, and so that means if I know my material, the finishes that I want, my contractors can also know the materials that I want because, we talk about relationship capital. You want to work with these guys over and over and over again. This is why they start to learn your ways. But anyway, you can have this on a sheet. This is what I buy every time for cabinets. Just go up to Home Depot and get it. Okay, and then, so now that you have material figured out, finally is how do you actually pay? And here we go. All right, we talked about the three things, the momentum, the fear tax, the management. If a contractor will give me a bid on the front end, an all-arounder contractor will give me a bid on the front end that encloses the price of materials and the materials fit my parameters that we just talked about, fine, great, I love that. That is the ideal scenario. If I feel like they're not adding any fear tax because of their price, or it's not constricting momentum, that's great, because then it's totally on them. Love that. That's not usually the case. Usually I can smell the fear, or smell the constriction coming from that. So what I offer up instead, sorry, one more thing on the enclosed bid. I still will not give them money up front, okay? So it could be, an enclosed bid still could be that they package up the material into an invoice, that I go call up to Home Depot or Lowe's and pay myself. That still I would consider an enclosed bid. Okay, but it's not taking much bandwidth. It's a phone call, right? Or if you have a VA, see my other course video on, how I manage the one-man business without any actual employees, VAs, virtual assistant. Okay, so the second way would be with a Home Depot Pro account. All right, this is the key here. Basically what a Pro account does is the contractor can go up to the desk, they can, ring up whatever they need, and then Home Depot calls you so you can put in your phone number. And then next is you could also have them text to confirm. So instead of a phone number, they text you and you can just hit, Y to approve, or I think it's like 1. And that's it. That's how I do it. And the thing about the text confirm is it can get a little bit crazy. People go up there all day, every day. What I like to do is I set times, days and times that they can go up there. So that way I don't have to be around my phone all day to confirm these things. Or the advanced version is there's things like bill cards where you can give them a credit card and you set budgets for it. So a lot of times you would do a combo. You would do like, okay, you can go to the Pro Desk to get the things you need at 8 a.m. on these days, and I'll be ready for the text to confirm. And if it's anything that's in the middle of that, here is a bill card. And then comes the management portion of it. This is huge because I told you before, you can really see the unalignment of the vision of the job by the materials that are getting purchased. And so the text confirms, they send you the invoice. So I can look and say, hey, why are you buying that material? That doesn't make sense for this project or this job that you're doing. And with the bill card stuff, you can review afterwards. One more thing, when you're doing this, note that there's a lot of times they'll buy drinks or tools on the card. You don't want that. But anyway, there's no perfect answer. This is the way that I've learned to deal with it, and it works for me. It's the perfect balance, I believe, of protecting your bandwidth, but also making sure you drive the project appropriately. Thanks. Guys, link below for our free, for now, school community. Actually, this question about the materials got asked in there, and this is me responding to that question. Pretty cool. If you got questions, I'll make a video for you. Take it easy.